laughing, thinking about this because really I'm not trying to toot your horn here and the snowball horn, but this has been a great example and I think actually opened eyes for different teams that work in different silos and work in different industries that originally there was like this feeling, and I still think it exists in some areas, that like, the social sharing, the peer-to-peer invitations, those won't work in every industry. I think at the end of the day for us is our customers are consumers. They want to make sure that they are seeing what's happening out there. They're being inundated, of course, with ads and different information. But when you can see that peer led example, that peer, so and so, like Rachel's going to this event, great, I got to go too. Or I want people to see that I'm a thought leader and I'm going to take the stage, or I'm going to an event to talk. There's just so much wrapped in that as like a human element that it really has worked far beyond the industries we thought it would. So when we look at things like in energy, we think, maybe this won't, more of a consumer approach won't work there. They're very technical. They're thinking about, their businesses in a different ways than maybe an event that's closer aligned with a consumer show. It's not the
Yeah.
case. Those are the people that want to make sure they're getting the most out of their time. So they want other people like them to be together. And I really think that the pandemic shifted stuff in this sense because people want face to face. They want to be together. They want to be a part of that. So I think that, the social sharing, just the innovation that you've had around how do we tell people stories and bring them to life in new ways has been amazing for us. But it's also been a really great example of something that doesn't fit just one audience type. I mean, even just all of your clients across the board, it fits so many different industries, so many different types of people. And it's something you can customize to fit your audience too. When we look at data, and we've been on a really big data journey, I think we all have in the last few years of understanding and what are the impacts from it. But we constantly are looking, the framework that we're trying to give everyone is, what is the data telling you? What are you learning from it? And what are you going to do about it? And if you can kind of break it down to those three pieces, so your data, your insights, and your action, it does really help you have like a formula to say, what's next and where do I need to go? So when we are looking at, judging a campaign and how it's working, if we're looking at a certain audience that we want to grow, it's always kind of spending that time with the data to say, what am I noticing? What's different? Be curious, kind of dig into stuff. But then what does that mean and how are you going to action? And if you don't have that, what does that mean and how does it action? You don't really have a plan or a strategy there. It's just kind of doing the tactics over and over again. So, I always get worried that our teams are going to fall into paralysis by analysis and they're spending too much time poring over the numbers. But that's also why I want to quickly move to, okay, what is it telling you? What are you going to do about it? I think that really also helps teams feel more nimble and like how they're approaching, how they're testing, how they're trying new things. So when I worked at RX years ago, we had this phrase that was sharing copy with pride. And at the time, I think we've all been there. We were worked on something that we thought was so unique and so different and no one else could ever replicate. But then we started saying, like, how do I take the best of what one team is doing or best of what one customer set is responding to and apply that elsewhere? And I've carried that with me for years now. And I really want my teams and my peers and, in and out of Clarion to think this way, because once we learn something that's working well in one space, how can we adopt that for others? So yeah, sharing copy with pride is just something that I think of
Sharing copy
fairly.
apart.
Yeah, I think that daily. I try and get my teams to think that way too, because when you're in a silo, like I feel very fortunate that I see across so many different brands and
Yeah.
customer types. But when you're in a silo with your like, with your customers and your industry, you might not notice those things or might not feel those different kind of ideas.
Yeah.
And I think it's all like you said about adapting. It's not a cut, copy and paste. It's how does this fit for my audience? What are the indicators we're seeing from our audience that they might like something like this or respond to this? But at the same time, you sometimes have to kind of go for it and try something new, making sure you
Trying.
know your audience at the end of the day. For us, like one of the big things, and we've always talked a lot about customer centricity, but this is
Mm.
where when we understand what those challenges are of our customers, we're able to showcase that value that they'll get in return. So one of
Mm.
our groups, for us, they're called key accounts, but for other companies, it might be delegate sales, it might be VIP type programs, but taking those really important customers, the ones that make a difference being there or not being there, and understanding what they're going through? What are their challenges? What are the hurdles that they're jumping through to be able to bring a group to the event or to be able to just come as their themselves? So when we're closer to what they're telling us about their challenges, what they're looking forward to, what those gaps are, what are the problems that they're trying to solve for, the better we can not only deliver that value but talk about it. And so there's clarity
Mm.
in our messaging. There's clarity in our writing style too for them to make sure that they're getting out of it, but it really comes from us being that close to what's going on in our market.
So that's a perfect example because, like, in a way, here you're sampling some group of people that you're really talking to, and then you're scaling that across
Yeah.
the full campaign to everybody else because there are some, true points that will apply to pretty much all that audience.
Yep.
That you're
Exactly.
getting it from the source, from your people. So you're very close to your customers and having those conversations. And I know you have a lot of one-on-ones with them to get you that information. And that's really key to keep your hands on the pulse of what's happening and what moves the needle for them specifically.
Where we always try and get our teams to say, like, pause for a second. What are those customers saying that you should make some adjustments for? What are things that you can make an adjustment now? But then how does it inform future strategies too? So there is, we're go, go, go. We're so cyclical. We're always working for that next event. But how do you pause to say, ooh, this is what they're saying? Is this an indicator of something bigger happening? Let me dig into
Mm,
this more with other customers. Let me learn about this. Is this just a really good in like kind of comment or point that we can scale and share across so we can drive more value from that? Great. But it is like you have to slow down a little bit when it comes to what you're hearing from your customers. So the my biggest piece of advice is get out of your own day to day. And I was talking with one of the marketing directors this morning, and I suggested three different people for her to talk to within the business. So they're like our teams are often so close to their customers. They know what's going on in their market, but the more
mm,
you can talk to people outside of that, the better ideas that you end up getting too. So, actually, Greg Japalian always encourages us all to get outside of our day to day, whether it's taking a walk or going to a different movie that you might not normally going to a festival, maybe. But you get such great ideas outside of your day to
yeah.
day, and so you can start small. It might be a different talking to a different marketing director within your business. It might be talking to someone outside of your business that does the same thing. But those are those times that you spark ideas, you build interactions, you build, new connections with people. And I really do think that makes you, take some sort of like sparked idea that might change the way you're doing things too. So it doesn't need to be a big idea every time, but if someone
No.
made you think a little differently, like that's amazing for what you can do in your business.